So, what's the logical step after doing some sequels for some of your older one-shot specials? Make a massive crossover special, of course. Wasn't expecting this, but looks like Rankin-Bass was doing the whole cinematic universe thing decades before Marvel did. Not only is this the longest special to date, clocking in at close to an hour and 40 minutes, making it more of a full-length TV movie rather than a special, it actually seems to suggest that pretty much all of Rankin-Bass's specials are taking place in the same world, as wacky as that seems. The special starts with Rudolph visiting Frosty in the middle of June up in the wilds of the North Pole, where we meet Frosty and Crystal's kids, Chili and Millie. When Rudolph attempts to show off his glowing nose, he's shocked to see that his nose is starting to go out, which is quickly followed by a snowstorm, and then we get a whole bunch of lore dropped on us by Santa, once again played by Mickey Rooney, as he tells us of the magical history of the Northlands, which encompasses the North Pole, how it was once ruled by an evil wizard king, who was put into a deep sleep by Lady Boreal, the human incarnation of Aurora Borealis. During the time of peace that followed, Santa and the Kringle family found and settled in the north themselves, and he became the de facto leader of the area. But Boreal knew that she couldn't remain forever, and would have to return to the Borealis, but she wasn't about to just leave. Turns out, she was the one who granted Rudolph his power, saying that the light in his nose is actually a gift from the Aurora Borealis, and so long as he uses the power for good and never for evil, it will always stay lit. When Boreal leaves and her power over the wizard, Winterbolt, fades, he awakens and plans to take Santa's apparent throne by trying to damage children's belief in him, by whipping up that snowstorm that almost kept Santa from making his trip, that Rudolph helps him to navigate. And so with all of that retroactive continuity out of the way, Winterbolt decides to try and push Rudolph to do just one evil act with his nose to destroy his magic, which involves tricking him and his friends into going out of the North Pole and trying to save a down-on-its-luck circus. He even makes Frosty and his family temporarily unmeltable to encourage them to go to the circus. In the Florida heat. In July. Recipe for disaster, right folks? As you could probably tell, this special really goes out of its way to make its plot a bit more ambitious than the typical fare. Not to say it's grand or epic in any way. At its core, it's still a save the circus sort of story, but it's executed really well, and there's a lot of nice little touches for anyone who's been a fan of Rankin-Bass up to this point, with a lot of canon welding to try and make all of their previous specials feel like they all take place in the same continuous timeline, which means we get a lot of cameos from previous characters in these stories, even if it's just a mention here and there. The Kringle family shows up briefly, Jack Frost plays an important part during the climax, Old Man Winter's magical corn is used yet again to grant the power of flight to a bunch of animals, Big Ben shows up on his way to South America, and several scenes from past specials are briefly recreated using the new stop-motion puppets. And of course, this is Frosty's debut in stop-motion, and he and his family look pretty good. It's not all about fan nostalgia, of course. There are quite a few new characters introduced in this special, and I enjoy most of them. Scratcher the reindeer is a nice bitter inversion of Rudolph's good nature. Most of the people involved with the circus at least leave a fun impression, and Winterbolt himself is actually a really good villain. Not only shown to be relatively powerful in what he can do and the resources at his disposal, but he's actually kind of intimidating as well, especially when you see how big he is compared to the other characters. And he probably has one of the scariest death scenes I've ever seen put to stop motion.
The scepter dies, I go too. I turn, I turn into a tree.
Ugh, yeesh. Animation-wise, it's very good. I wouldn't say it's great, but going along with the ambition of the story and the longer runtime, the animation is quite well done, and there are a lot more visual effects used throughout the story to enhance the magical feel of everything. And this might just be a special that manages to have the widest variety of locales and sets for its story, too, showing off a massive range of locations and settings, and I love it for that. Like most other Rudolph specials, it features a pretty big song list too. Unlike other specials featuring the reindeer, they are all actually full, fleshed out songs, and we get a pretty good mix of old and new here. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman show up, of course, and we even get a reprisal of a couple of Misfits in the special too. There are quite a few well-known Christmas tunes in there, like Rocking Around the Christmas Tree and I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, and they're pretty decent renditions. The new songs are just okay overall though, most of them hit and miss. Everything I Always Wanted sounds kind of clumsy. There are times when I feel like the words barely fit into the meter. No Bed of Roses is a pretty good Losing All Hope song, though Rudolph's singing voice is still kind of weak. Chicken Today and Feathers Tomorrow I really enjoy. Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to music, but overall it is pretty good, helped by the fact that the sound effects and background music are fairly strong here, as is the voice acting. The only weak links I find in the cast are, once again, Rudolph and Frosty themselves. They aren't bad, but they're both very boring sounding, and while their performances are solid, I think it's just a consequence of their characters not being that interesting. The things that happen to and around them are, but they themselves are not. I really liked this special, once again. It can feel a little bit long with its extra runtime, but overall I feel like it used its time very wisely. It tells a very fun story, the lore bits are really fun for anyone who grew up with past specials, and the characters and animation are really entertaining. It's as much a celebration of how long these specials had been going on at this point, and how far they'd come in terms of production and storytelling, for the most part, since the tradition of making these began. And I applaud it for that, and encourage anyone who has fond memories of any past Rankin-Bass special to check this one out.
I turn, I turn into a tree.